Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of our podcast. We're going to have a pretty interesting topic today, the spiritual understanding of natural disasters and why sudden painful things occur. I think it's a topic, obviously, that is applicable to what's going on. Some of you might have seen my post sharing that my family as well lost our home in the fires here in Los Angeles. And I'm also happy to kind of go through the spiritual process that I went through as well and to share that with you in hopes that that would be helpful. But I do think also it's important to understand what the Kabbalists, what the sages share for thousands of years about why do global catastrophes, wars, sudden plagues or death, floods, earthquakes, fires, hurricanes, and other forms of natural disasters occur. What's happening on a soul level and what does it mean energetically? So maybe I'll start with that first. Kabbalah explains that when the soul came down, well, that's very interesting. Even as I'm doing this podcast, we're getting an emergency alert. Let's see if we're going to edit this out or not. So it might actually be very authentic to keep that in there. Okay. So Kabbalah explains that when the soul came down to this world, it came down for one reason: to be able to have the free will to act like the creator. What does that mean, free will? If you've taken my Kabbalah 1 masterclass before, there's a concept where before the physical reality, before this physical world was created, all there was the light force of the creator that created a desire to receive, which is known as the vessel, which is the accumulation and oneness of all the souls of humanity. These souls, this desire to receive, received the endless light, received the fulfillment, but there was one thing that this vessel could not experience, which was its own ability to be a creator. This was a passive relationship that it was just receiving. But in the same way that when we are created from our parents, we have the DNA of our parents, the vessel had the DNA of the creator. So us, the souls of humanity, we have within ourselves the DNA to want to become like God, to want to be a sharing force, to want to be a creative force, to want to be the cause and not just the effect. In this energetic relationship, the vessels were just the effect of receiving. It's kind of like if you've ever been in a relationship where you are the main giver or you are the main receiver. You might think that if you're in a relationship where someone just wants to give to you and is willing to give to you no matter what, whatever you need, whenever you need, and you're just happy to receive it, that this could be a very symbiotic relationship. Unfortunately, we know there's no circuitry here. We know that in a relationship where there's only one giver, one receiver, eventually the receiver begins to resent the giver. In the same way that a child is born into a family where everything is given to him or her, and they are quote unquote spoiled, they get whatever they want whenever they want it, these children also begin to resent the parents. Because this is a mirror image of the celestial relationship we had with the Creator, where we received passively and endlessly, but we experienced the lack of ability to be a creator. And that gave birth to our physical world. In this physical world, what is so important is free will. The only time we have the opportunity to act like the creator is when we experience darkness, but we also experience the level of consciousness to choose the light over the dark, meaning I act like the creator in the most difficult times. This is why my soul came to this world. To have this free will is the greatest gift that the souls have. This is why we were born into a reality of darkness. We were born into a reality where we're not sure who our soulmate or soulmates are. We're not sure where we will find financial abundance or freedom. We're not sure what we're meant to do in this life. These are all things that we earn throughout time. Nothing comes easy to us in this physical world. We must work for it. We must earn it. But this is what the soul chose before coming down to this world. And now we have the free will to either act like the creator and access the realm of miracles and blessings, or to be reactive. to always come from a place of fear or lack, just to connect to instant gratification. These are the two choices we have on a daily basis. And in order to choose to become like the Creator, we need to experience darkness. Now, how is this leading up to this understanding of pain? What is the purpose of pain? And then when we understand the purpose of pain, we can understand the purpose of global pain. Pain is the force that the Creator created to cleanse negativity in order to bring it to a balancing point. So for example, what happens if a person is constantly reactive, constantly drawing negative energy, and now the accumulation of negative energy gets so strong that they are compelled to always be negative and selfish? It's almost like if you were addicted to heroin. The addiction is so strong because it takes about 15 seconds to be addicted to heroin in such a way where you almost don't have free will to choose to not be on the drug. So a person gets so addicted, do they have free will to just get off of the drug? We know people who smoke. It's one of the hardest addictions to get over. Can they just choose not to smoke? Can you just wake up one day and say, I have a choice, I'm not going to smoke? We have seen that the withdrawal is so difficult that there is almost no choice when we are experiencing severe addiction. So what happens, the mechanism in place spiritually in this world is pain and suffering. What pain and suffering does is it cleanses the addiction. It cleanses the negative energy. It cleanses this force that is compelling us to just choose instant gratification. And what it does is it creates a balance of both the positive and negative within us. And this is why often when people are truly broken, they go through a process of being broken, of being cleansed, of having their ego broken, and they're still choosing some level of happiness at the end of this, they feel lighter. They feel clearer. They feel that now they can choose a different life. In fact, they look back and they say, I can't even believe I would choose such a relationship. I can't even believe I was that kind of a person. I can't even believe that these were the negative things I used to do. That clarity came from pain cleansing the negativity forcefully to allow us free will. Now, we also know that after we go through pain, it's not a guarantee that we will always choose the right things. But what is happening is now there is a balance of positive and negative forces inside of us so that we maintain the free will to act like the Creator in this world. So the way this universe is designed is there will always be a 50-50 evenness between the positive and the negative so that we can choose. It will never get so positive that we don't have a choice on that end. And it will never get so negative that we no longer have a choice on that end. Actually, I don't want to get into it in this podcast, but there is a reality where it can get so positive that the whole world elevates to a certain consciousness and feels the light of the Creator to such an extent where nobody makes mistakes anymore. I'll save that for another podcast. For now, we have to understand our reality is one of such, we will always be 50-50. And this is why no matter how spiritually elevated you are, how much you've even studied Kabbalah or any other wisdom, how much you've grown financially in your life and how powerful you are, there will always be equal forces, equal negativity to challenge you so you always have free will. It's interesting when we have a presidential race in the US, it's almost like half the country loves you and half the country hates you. There's always like this balance of positive and negative forces attacking you, but this is exactly how it must be to always give you the free will to choose your Creator inside of you, to choose the light of your soul. So in our own lives, when it is deemed that the negativity we have accumulated, both from past life and this life, gets too strong, we undergo some type of pain. And there's 4 levels of pain, which I will not go into in this podcast as well, because I try to keep these short so that you have the wisdom and energy you need to go through it this week. I do talk about this in Kabbalah too. There's 4 levels of pain. And gradually these levels of pain come to us to cleanse us of negativity. There's actually a 5th level, and that's called death. Death is something that the soul actually requests because it sees that the negative energy that the body is accumulating, that the ego is accumulating, is so strong that the soul doesn't have a chance in this lifetime to correct itself. So the soul requests death. And when the soul requests death, there is a process that happens of how the person dies, whether the person dies naturally, through disease, through a freak accident, sudden death, even suicide. These are all choices that the soul actually made in order to go through a reincarnation process. And during this process, the negativity is cleansed in the most powerful way that it could not in this physical world. The soul comes back to a new body, a new life, a new situation, but with the same correction process. And there's a new 50-50 free will to be able to transform that negativity. So this is what happens in our own lives. When we get sick, when we get the flu, when we start to have pain in our body, yes, this is an indication perhaps that something needs to change in our consciousness, in our actions, in our behavior. But it also has the positive benefit of simultaneously cleansing us of negativity in order to bring our consciousness back to a place of free will where we can choose and see the light. Choose and see what our soul is meant to do. Choose and see what is meant for our soul. Now, this happens on a global level as well. Often when a certain city, a certain state, a certain country, or even a certain continent reaches a critical mass of negative consciousness, and this is the accumulation of all of us. This is the accumulation of every single time we spoke evil speech, every single time we felt some kind of lack or fear, and we reacted to it. Every single time we complained, every single time we chose the path that we knew wasn't good for us, wasn't what our soul wanted. Every single time we create a little bit more of the accumulation of negative energy. And when a certain city is ready to go to its next level of revelation, that could be the revelation of wisdom, that could be the revelation of wealth, that could be the revelation of some form of healing, some form of cure for a disease. It could be some form of innovation, some form of solidarity that needs to happen, some form of unity that this city needs to have. There's some kind of blessing that needs to occur. There is some kind of accumulated disaster, what we call a natural disaster that could occur, that brings cleansing on such a mass scale. And the calculation of who goes through it and who doesn't and to what extent, this is all part of each soul's destiny. What we know is this calculation is infinitely divine and only the Creator understands it. But at least on our level, we don't need to understand why. I mean, we are learning now why on a spiritual level, but specifically why we may not fully understand. But what we can learn is what we need to do as we go through it in order to maximize our fulfillment and the blessings in our lives. So I remember when the fires here broke out in Los Angeles, I was staying in a hotel and I heard that the fires were in the Palisades and our home was close by in a neighboring area. And I did not think that actually the fires would get there. And it's not that I had certainty. See, this is where sometimes people mix up certainty. Some people say, well, didn't you have certainty that your house would not be burned? It's not about having certainty if the house will be burned or not. That level of certainty is a low level of certainty. It's about having certainty that no matter what is going to happen, it is good. What if the house needs to be burned down? What if a person needs to go through a process? It's not that we are always trying to control and manipulate this physical world by saying, you know what, I have certainty that this relationship is mine, or this job is mine, or this house is mine. I have so much certainty. That's not how to employ your mind over matter. The highest level of certainty is to say, you know what, I don't know if it's meant for me or not. I don't know if this relationship is meant for me or not, but if I feel compelled to pursue it, if I feel compelled to live in that home, if I feel compelled to work in this career, I will, but I have certainty that everything is going to work out. I have certainty that everything is coming from the Creator and therefore it is good. So once I woke up in the morning and found out that the house had burned down, then there's a spiritual process that we need to go through. And everyone will go through something differently for different reasons. I'm not saying the process I went through is the process that other people should go through. I'm just going to share my experience because I know I've been asked hundreds of times in the last few days, what was that experience like? And if I could share, and it would be helpful. For me, initially, there is this, and I've learned that oftentimes we become spiritual, we can bypass or skip over the process of feeling the pain. And so this is something that all of us must be careful of on our spiritual journey. Pain has a purpose. If you too quickly say, this was good, I love it, and you ignore actually going through a mourning process. Mourning is spiritual. Mourning is a cleansing that must occur. If you too quickly bypass this process, then this pain has to reemerge elsewhere, again, in a different way. So the first thing I made sure of was to feel the loss, to actually fully feel the loss. And I did that in many ways. I spoke to family members, spoke to my kids, spoke to Mary Ruth. I went through photos. I started to actually think of memories to fully feel what it was like to be in this home. And I didn't try to bypass this process too quickly by jumping into, well, how do we fix it mode? How do we solve this problem? Even the calling of the insurance company, even the calling of a contractor, even the calling of the bank and figuring out all those logistics, all of that was happening in parallel, but not as a reaction to not feel pain. The importance of feeling loss proactively, you choose to feel that pain, is a very spiritual process. And no matter what it is that you've lost, you should say, and this is the mantra, I choose to feel this pain. Because if you don't choose to feel it, it will choose you to feel it later on by not being able to sleep. Later on by having it reemerge in your body in some way, God forbid. Later on by having it emerge in different scenarios that we don't expect. So by you saying, I choose to feel this pain, and then saying, I know this pain is good, this is the process by which you heal both the body and the soul. So the first day for me was feeling it, choosing to feel it as much as possible. And obviously, things still come up over time. Memories come up, thoughts come up, feelings come up. I see new videos. I haven't been there yet because they won't allow us to, but I see and experience new things. And so then when I feel them, I say, now I choose to feel this. Oftentimes we're very afraid of feeling pain. We're scared of it. We're scared of difficult conversations. We're scared of confrontation. We're scared of going into situations that we know will make us uncomfortable because we don't want to feel pain. So feeling it was the most important part of what I went through. And this was 2 days ago. I'll share because of my commitment to keep these podcasts short and to be respectful of your time, I'll share the continuation of what I did after this process spiritually in my next podcast. Thank you all for listening this week.